Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. In the previous episode, we showed off a really interesting Xerneas team that has Hyper Beam on it as well as Imprison Zacian. So we'll be playing a couple more matches with it today. If you've not seen the last episode, it's down there in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste of the team. And thank you once again to Binjia Wang, the original creator, for putting this team together. I think it's definitely one of the most impressive Xerneas teams that I've seen in the format, and it's really showed me a new way to play Xerneas in Sword and Shield, really. So yeah. If you do enjoy, please show support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I'm curious how you just feel about the current metagame at the moment. I ask this every couple of weeks or so, but for now, I think it definitely has settled down a little bit, where I feel like that Sun team, for example, is still really dominant, and there haven't been too many teams that not only have a good matchup against that, but also favorable matchups across the board. But I think for like Battle Spot or Battle Stadium, specifically in Best of One, like there's so many teams and strategies that are really coming to fruition. So I've still been enjoying it a lot, but I think the tournament meta is a little bit different from the online meta, and I probably like, trying out all these different things online rather than trying to prep for tournaments and trying to beat like the Sun team specifically. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and let's get started. All right, getting into things here, and I already have nightmares because it's Ditto, Sableye, Gothitelle, and Porygon with Zacian and Dialga. It's a really interesting team because it's so heavily centered around the steel types. We have a lot of interesting counters here between like the policy on the Venu and the Sun stuff. Quash from Sableye is something to watch out for. Scarf Ditto copying our Zacian is something to watch out for as well. Hypnosis Max Speed Gothitelle, also something to watch out for. This is a nightmare. Like, I'm low-key intrigued by just the Indie Xerneas lead, and just go for the idea of sacrificing Xern, getting Zacian in, and then imprisoning. The thing is that Venu in the Sun is also really solid here, I would say, because I can just max flare things. But this plus Lando in the back I feel like is decently strong, so there's multiple ways to approach this game. I think Torkoal Venu is certainly one. My problem with Torkoal Venu is that Torkoal is so weak here because they've got so much disruption. They've got Yawn potentially, or not Yawn, Taunt potentially from Sableye. Gothitelle can ally switch and Hypnosis. So it's like, I would use the Torkoal to enable Venusaur, but the Torkoal effectively feels like a kind of useless Pokemon other than setting up the Sun, right? And with this, like with Indeedee plus Xerneas, yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive into dual steals. And they're going to go with Goth and the Dialga. Okay, works for me. Yeah, this is great, because it's just a turn 1 follow me into Geomancy, and there's not much they can do to stop it right now. And if you knock out the Indeedee, it's a free switch into Zacian, to which then I could actually just, Sacred... Or I don't have Sacred Sword, actually. What do I want to do, then? If they do KO the Indeedee on turn 1, but I get Geomancy up. Maxing Xerneas is a possibility. So, we're going to follow me in Geomancy here. If I went with Torkoal and Venusaur against this lead, I guess I could max Venu turn 1. But the thing is that, there's not much I can do to actually prevent a turn 1 Hypnosis from Gothitelle into Venusaur. And if I were running that team, I would absolutely be running Hypnosis. It's a very high variance attack given its accuracy, but it is still, more in my opponent's favor than mine, which is really scary. So, yeah. If we get Geomancy up, then it's they've got 2 special attackers. Although I guess Gothitelle really doesn't even use that many special attacks. Maybe Psychic / Psyshock, but most of the time I would expect to see Foul Play as its attack, actually. And a lot of Gothitelles don't even run offense these days. It's just Fake Out, Ally Switch, Hypnosis, Taunt, Trick Room, Helping Hand. Goth just gets so many good supportive moves. And Gothitelle is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon. I used it at Worlds in 2014 and 2015, actually. Okay, so Dialga is going to go for the max here. We're going to go for Follow Me. Now what? Okay, we're already faster than the Dialga, so that's good to know. Gothitelle clicking something like Trick Room here could be scary. There is also the possibility of them, since Indeedee has Sash here, I'm not sure Indeedee will actually faint this turn. And that can be kind of awkward, because then, let's say they taunt into Indeedee or Hypnosis it. Things can get awkward. Okay, they go for Steel Spike, which is fine. Defense boost, not that relevant in this given moment. Mainly curious now, do you have Hypnosis on Gothitelle? Or do you go for a Trick Room? Trick Room would be really scary here, actually. I don't expect it to have Trick Room, but I could be wrong. Yeah, they just go for Hypnosis. Okay. Hypnosis is definitely scary. Definitely scary, but I can Dynamax Xerneas and go for Max Starfall right now. If I were them, I could, you could Helping Hand Steel Spike Xerneas. You could try to Hypnosis Xerneas and Steel Spike Xerneas. That's certainly a possibility. Do you feel forced to Dynamax here? It's probably Focus Sash on Gothitelle, right? Okay. I'm down to Max and Starfall. The problem is the next turn, because I think Goth's going to have Ally Switch as well. So then, like, on the second turn, they could go for Ally Switch into another Steel Spike onto the Xerneas right now. So the other thing to think about is that if I KO Dialga, they can actually bring in a Ditto to copy my Xerneas, and that's pretty scary. Granted, our Zacian can, just put in work against it, but still. Yeah, they offer Helping Hand. Okay, so I could have considered the Max Guard play here. The interesting thing, though, is if Inity wakes up next turn, I can just go for another Starfall and then just Heal Pulse to heal all the way back up. Oh my gosh, we almost one-shot Dialga there. They're actually going to faint after Life Orb, I think, but Xerneas is still going to take a ton of damage on the way out. Yeah, I mean, Helping Hand, Life Orb, Steel Spike's still going to pack a punch here, even with the +2. But you know what? I actually took that better than I expected, so I'll take it. Okay, cool. We actually just almost KO Dialga, which is wild. Yeah, the Hypnosis is just frustrating, but that's the thing, right? Like, on these teams, it's just such a strong option that even though it's a high variance attack, you don't really have that many better options with Gothitelle, and if you hit it, it puts you in such a good spot. So, totally understandable. They're going to bring out the Ditto to copy me. Now, bringing out Ditto to copy me is interesting because I actually don't think a Helping Hand Dazzling Gleam KOs the Xerneas right now. Yeah. I mean, the only move they can really go for right now is basically Dazzling Gleam. So, I don't mind just going for a Helping Hand here because otherwise I'm going to faint anyway and go for a Max Starfall onto the Ditto slot and try to just knock that out. We're honestly not in bad shape right now. I'm surprised that they brought Ditto first over Zacian, but at the same time it makes sense because you want to copy my Xerneas, but I actually think that might not work in their favor here. Because I don't think Helping Hand Gleam gets the KO, but I could be wrong. Okay, unfortunately I do stay asleep for another turn. There's Gleam. Beautiful, Xerneas survives. Okay, excellent. Hopefully this gets the knockout. If not, that could be a little bit concerning. Just fall short of the KO. Okay. Well, I can bring in Zacian. They're just going to go for Helping Hand plus Gleam again, most likely. They could Ally Switch as well. Ally Switch is such a nightmare here. Should be Choice Scarfed. I mean, if I were them, I would Ally Switch, truthfully. So I think I'm going to read into the Ally Switch. I'm going to Behemoth Blade Gothitelle and go for a Max Guard here. Let's see. Nice. Okay. Well, that's good. That's certainly good. But this is still far from over because I could lose just off the speed tie, right, between the Zacians. I think that's actually what it might come down to. At least got that turn correctly, though, which is good. And ultimately, like, I'm decently happy about how I played this game, because if they miss the Hypnosis or the Inity gets a quick Wake Up as well, and we get that Helping Hand off, we should just win the game. Like, if Inity gets the Helping Hand off that turn, then I get the KO, and then I'm able to Max Strike my opponent to lower their speed, right? The subsequent turn. And then Max Strike, bring in Zacian, Imprison, and that just seals up the game immediately, right? Okay. So now it is +2 Xern. They've got Zacian. I've obviously got Dazzling Gleam right now. They could just Helping Hand Behemoth Blade either Pokemon. I guess I could always switch out here into Landorus, but I don't think that's worth it. I mean, I'm down for an Imprison here, because if I get it, the game's just over, right? So, Imprison into Dazzling Gleam. I guess the fear is if the... Okay, so Gothitelle doesn't go for a Helping Hand or an Ally switch. We get Gleam off. Nice. That may have been a speed tie. I think it's very likely a speed tie here, but... Yep. Beautiful. And they forgot about Misty Terrain here. Or they were actually trying to cover for a land or a switch, and that would also make sense. But I figured that play covered most options, right? Now we just win the game. This was a scary one, though, right? Like, but this, I think this game is a perfect example of how the Xerneas team can work, right? Like, I brought a Xerneas into a team that had dual steel restricteds and was still able to win because, like, of how we played it, right? And so, I mean, first of all, we almost just one-shot that Dialga with Starfall. I think if we get that one-hit KO there and they don't get any damage onto us, it's also just really tough for them to win. I also think, though, that by bringing out the Ditto first rather than the Zacian, they actually might have put themselves in a tougher position. Because what my opponent had going for them is that they had the Entity trapped in and asleep, right? So I can't do anything with that Pokemon, meaning that if you bring Zacian out, I can't just go for the Imprison strategy that normally would work with this team. So I think they may have actually been better off bringing Zacian immediately to replace the Dialga rather than the Ditto, and by bringing Ditto out first, they actually got punished by it. But yeah, definitely a really interesting one. Unfortunately, everything went our way in this one in the late game where we called the ally switch correctly, and our Zacian was able to attack first there. The thing is, even if I lose the speed tie there, especially because Gothitelle went for Hypnosis, if you Behemoth Blade into my Zacian before I can move, then the next turn I just get another Dazzling Gleam off, and I've got Landorus in the back as well with the Intimidate onto Zacian. So I actually still feel pretty good about my spot. And if you target the Xerneas instead, well, I'll still get the Imprison off after Behemoth Blade, and I would still win the game. So actually, because the Gothitelle didn't go for anything other than Hypnosis there, and that's part of the problem with Gothitelle, it kind of falls off beyond its supportive attacks, then, you know, given that it didn't go for like a offensive attack on a Xerneas there, I actually think we were good anyway. So even if we lost the speed tie, I think we would have been fine. But yeah, glad to highlight the power of Xerneas once again, so let's keep things going. Next game of the day here, and we're up against a very standard Zacian Kyogre Zapdos team. I mean, this is the standard Kyogre Zacian comp, basically. But just because it's standard doesn't mean it's weak by any means. So, a couple things to think about here. Screens from Grimmsnarl can be annoying, so the first question is, can we just eliminate Grimmsnarl immediately? Allow it to only get one screens up in this game. Also, I mean, it's Sun, right? So, like, Venusaur, Torkoal naturally are good options, but... Or, sorry, it's Rain and we have Sun. But they have Zapdos, which I think really scares me. If I were them, like, Grimm, Zapdos, Kyogre, Zacian is a really strong 4. So I'm intrigued by honestly just going with Entity Xerneas once again. Zacian in the back, and then maybe Torkoal is the 4th for Weather Control. Weather Control is mainly valuable. Like, Torkoal here is actually pretty good in a Zacian, and if I can change the weather against Kyogre while having gotten Geomancy off with Xerneas, that's pretty valuable as well. But, you know, once again, I always talk about the strength of a team being able to, like, bring all 6 Pokemon into a matchup, which can make things a little bit more difficult sometimes, but I think here, you definitely could go Torkoal, Venu, Xerneas, Zacian. Not necessarily in that order. I think, like, leading that is risky, but I think something like a Venu, Xerneas, or Venu, Zacian lead, and then turn 1 pivot out into Torkoal potentially can be strong. But the main thing here is the Zapdos. If they didn't have Zapdos, then I think Venusaur is a field day in this matchup. But the Zapdos alone just hard counters the Venusaur, because I just can't do any damage to Zapdos with either Venusaur or Torkoal, really. And yeah, they go with Zapdos and Zacian. Okay. I think turn 1 then the play is to follow me Geomancy. Ooh, I guess my only fear, I do want to double check Zacian's speed. Does Xerneas, like, if Zacian is max speed and they get a speed boost via max airstream from Zapdos, does that cause me any problems? That's what I want to confirm right now. I just want to double check since we are running max speed on this Zacian as well. 220, so you hit 330. Xerneas is just over that. Okay, perfect. That's actually really huge here. So I can go for a follow me into Geomancy. And then turn 2, if they knock out Indeedee... Oh, I guess the problem would be potential speed ties between Zacian on turn 2. Like, this play works if I get the Imprison off before their Zacian can attack. So I'll max strike, but the thing is that only brings them down to neutral speed should they airstream on turn 1. Now, the thing is, I actually don't expect the Zacian on the opposing team to be max speed. I think a lot of the Zacians on these comps these days are actually really bulky, especially with Grimmsnarl dual screen support. So that's one part of the equation right now. But if they are max speed and I lose the speed tie, that's actually a pretty big risk that I'm taking here. So This is actually one way that can help you when you're playing against this Xerneas composition, and I've definitely struggled, especially against like Regieleki just spamming Electro Web on turn 1 of the game. So that's something you really want to be aware of. Now, if for some reason they didn't Airstream here, then I think it is going to be really, really tough for them. Okay, they actually sub. Oh, I like that play a lot from their end, I think. That's a great play. Because in doing this, you deny me a free switch in on turn 1. I guess the interesting thing, though, now is that if the Zacian attacks... the problem is now you can just go for, If they're sub, by the way, maybe they are speedier. The problem is now, like, how do I actually get Imprison off properly, right? I can follow me into Max Strike here. I guess I'm still faster than Zapdos, so yeah, I think it's going to be follow me into Max Strike. And then just Strike again, but now my fear once again is that our Zacian speed high. If it does, so be it. Sub is actually a move that I think has trended upwards a lot on Xerneas recently, so it's not really that surprising. Like, I've seen a lot of Zacians drop play rough for sub. Really, I feel like in the last 2 weeks or so. So that's kind of a metagame development from recently. Okay, so we're going to Dynamax here. I think Max Strike would be a 2-hit KO onto Zapdos, but I guess I'm not 100% on that. So the idea here is Zacian KOs Indeedee, I strike into Zapdos, Zapdos Airstreams into Xerneas. I think that's the expected outcome for this turn. Okay, good. It is a 2-hit KO. Get the speed drop there. Should be Blade. Yep. I thought about Dazzling Gleaming there as well, but the problem if I Gleam is then, like, yeah, I break the sub, but then they get another Airstream off, and suddenly their Zapdos, or sorry, their Zacian's at +2 speed. I just can't allow that right now, right? Like, the whole advantage is that we're going to try to outpace them. So there's Airstream, yep. Okay. So reviewing the game state right now, Zapdos and Zacian both are at +1 speed. My Xerneas is at neutral, or sorry, +2, but I have Max Strike, and then I have Zacian waiting to come in the back as well. You know what's also really scary here? If my opponent just max guards the Zapdos... Oh, that's actually a pretty big issue. Because, like, it's really safe for me to strike into Zapdos. Like, unless you've seen this team, you wouldn't really expect Imprison, right? The problem with this play is if they just max guard. But I'm going to just go for strike into it. Because if I were them, I would just attack with both Pokemon. I could make the read and double up onto their Zacian, but then the problem is if their Zapdos just goes for a... Like, if you protect Zacian and just max flare into my Zacian, right? So this is, like, one of those interesting points where it's like, if you haven't seen this team before, you're not really going to expect the Imprison. And so you would probably think that Behemoth Blade into Xerneas right now is really safe. And think, okay, I can just trade Flare and Behemoth Blade. Nice, okay, they don't max guard. Beautiful. So now the question is, how fast is their Zacian? Are they actually max speed, or... So is it a speed tie or not? That's the one scary thing about using this team. It's like, you know, if they are actually max speed, then you do have to deal with these 50-50s. And for example, if they're max speed here and they win the speed tie, I think I lose the game, right? And if we do get the Imprison off first, which we do, okay, beautiful. Now we're in excellent shape. Especially because your remaining attacks, it should be Behemoth Blade, Sub, Protect, and... Oh, I guess it could be Sacred Sword over Play Rough. That's actually probably expected here, right? Okay. So, Kyogre comes out now. Even if you are Scarf Ogre here, it's not really too much of an issue. Zacian can't go for any relevant damage onto Xerneas right now. I guess one play you can make is protect Kyogre, switch Zacian out into a fake out user right now, which I actually think is fairly likely. I just don't think it's going to be Scarf Ogre here. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm down to protect here just to cover for all the combinations of Kyogre can be and just Starfall into Kyogre this turn. I think their most likely play is protect Kyogre, switch Zacian out. But even in that, then the next turn I can just protect my, Ooh, it's Grimm as their last one. They brought back Grimm. That's interesting. Okay. Wasn't fully expecting that, but I don't think that's fine. Protect here, probably? No, they don't even protect. Okay, beautiful. Okay. The thing, though, is that this is not over yet. Although I guess with Torkoal in the back, we're looking pretty solid right now. I could have attacked there, but the reason I didn't attack was because I was worried about, like, you know, for example, AV Ogre, I guess, wouldn't really one-shot Zacian with an Origin Pulse. Maybe I didn't need to be that scared with Zacian there. I figured that play was relatively okay, but the problem is they actually do get Grimmsnarl, which can go for Scary Face, Fake Out. Can't T-Wave because of Misty Terrain, though, which is nice. And, oh, actually, Imprison is still up, never mind. So there's really nothing they can do, right? Yeah, we just Blade and Gleam. I probably could have targeted Zacian over the Grimmsnarl here, but Grimm is a Pokemon that doesn't really carry Protect, so it's basically like a guaranteed KO there now if we target that slot. So, yeah. I mean, I think today's episode has really highlighted why you want to think about using this Imprison plus Geomancy combination with Max Strike. Like, these two games have been perfect demonstrations for how good this combo is. And it's not like a gimmick either. Like, it's actually a very legitimate strategy. I would say foolproof. The only scary thing is if you're up against Zacian, that is max speed. But like I mentioned, a lot of Zacians these days aren't opting for max speed. So this is a great example of a team that like builds to try to counter certain things in the metagame. And one trend recently has been that a lot of Zacians have not been opting for max speed. That honestly might change leading up until to the European Internationals, where maybe players opt for max speed once again. But the beautiful thing is, yeah, with this spread, like if they're not max speed, you just hard win against opposing Zacian. So I've been really impressed by the Imprison here, and it's so crucial because it turns like what would be a losing matchup into a completely winning position with the Zacian and Xerneas combination. So yeah, let's look for another. Third game here, and it's standard Zacian Groudon Charizard stuff. Okay. You know, it's funny because we've used like what 3 different versions of this team at this point, and I always advise people to like look at the rentals and see if you know these teams that you go up against are any of the rentals that are running around right now. Especially because like there are slight deviations in what like the Charizard set and item, the Instant item, whether you're Shook or Citrus, for example, and then the Grimm set, whether it's Iron Ball, T-Wave stuff, or just like play dual screens. So Indeedee plus Landorus is like a decent answer into this team. I'm almost thinking about dropping Xerneas, oddly enough. Just because Venusaur can be pretty solid here. Venu's really good, even as a non-max option, but I guess I am almost always going to max Landorus here. And if I'm not maxing Venusaur, that's still not bad. I think Xerneas, like, is still a little bit more consistent. Like, I'd bring Venusaur if I weren't confident I'd be maxing Landorus, but I just don't see a world in which I'd max Landorus. I don't see a world in which I don't max Landorus, this is what I mean to say. So, yeah, what are the goals here? I mean, first of all, what are they going to lead? Because, like, Charizard, especially if it's the Heatwave variant plus Groudon. Okay, they go with Charizard and Zacian. This is pretty scary as well. If it's Heatwave Charizard here, like, you could obviously just switch Zacian out into Groudon turn 1. And then just Heatwave, preventing me from really getting any value from Swords Dance. I think leading with the Sun team is so important, and being able to, like, apply pressure early is so huge. And this is a nice lead by my opponent, because it's just so much damage coming out immediately. I don't know if you're the Charty variant, and even with Charty, like, I am Life Orb Rockfall, and I have Helping Hand support from Indeedee as well. Part of me wants to just Dynamax and Helping Hand Rockfall into Charizard on turn 1, but that's risky because they could just Behemoth Blade, Airstream, Slush, Wildfire onto Landorus. Zacian turn 1 can switch out into Groudon, right? That's definitely a possibility. They could just Protect as well. They could go into Incin as well. Expect Incin to be their last one. Okay, I'm kind of going for like a middle ground play where I go for Follow Me and Rockfall here. Okay, Zacian switches out. That's already great. Charizard, or sorry, into Groudon, yeah. It gets scary if they are the Charty variant here and they survive. If you're Charty, you Wildfire into Indeedee, Rockfall doesn't KO you. I do at least change the weather. But if I change the weather, I mean, what else do I get from that after that? Charizard would still outpace me. Oh, but then I get Zacian in, I suppose, and I can just Behemoth Blade to finish you off if you are Charty. I also don't really know the damage calc of Life 4 Rockfall from Lando into Charty Charizard. I really should know that. I feel like Charizard should still survive, but we'll see. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it actually got a KO through a Charty. But it's been a while since I've, yeah. Like, just because Charty Charizard hasn't been, like, super common before regionals. Okay, so we go for Follow Me. Wildfire into Indeedee makes sense. They could Airstream as well. Yeah, Wildfire is going to be the option. I think that's strong. Just get that residual damage up immediately. Okay. I couldn't go with Indeedee and Xerneas in this game because it's like Xerneas is pretty weak into both Charizard and Zacian. Okay, they are Life Orb, though, which is good. Oh my gosh, this game is already so interesting, because, like, I'll get the KO, but then they just bring Zacian back in, right? And so I can bring in my Zacian and just go for Imprison. Man, is that even the option? Like, this is such a fast-paced turn 1, but I actually don't think it favors me that much, to be honest. Because I can't one-shot Groudon, which is the problem right now. I have to go into Zacian, right? Because if I go into Xerneas, it just gets dunked on by a Behemoth Blade. Ugh. So, like, I can Imprison into... I actually feel like I'm pinned already, honestly. Because, like, what can I do here, right? I can... Behemoth Blade into my Landers is also just a problem, right? Oh, actually, with Imprison, we should be fine, because, like, maybe you knock out my Zacian, but then I just KO your Zacian, no? So, like, Max Quake into the Zacian, and Imprison to deny them an attack this turn. Incin? Nice play. Yeah, that's an excellent play. That plus the sorry, not Behemoth Blade. Precipice Blades will put me in a really tough spot. Although, what I can then do the next turn is... I can't even Fake Out. There's Shuka, yep. I can Airstream, though, which helps. Also, if they miss Precipice Blades here, I think they're done for. Okay. I say that, actually, but are they? They could still pull off a comeback. Anyway, great switch by them, though. I think that's an excellent play. Also, Wildfire is so rough to deal with right now. There's just so much residual damage across the board. There's Blades. Okay, does hit Zacian. Fair play. And gets the one-hit KO. And this is the downside of running max speed Zacian with no bulk, right? Precipice Blades will just dunk on you. Like, max attack with no bulk, max attack Groudon into no bulk Zacian is just a guaranteed KO, which is not surprising, but it's so powerful. So we can bring out Xerneas now. The thing about Xerneas is... I can Geomancy. I need an Airstream right now with the Landorus, that's for sure. So I think here I'm going to go for Airstream onto the Groudon slot. And just click Geomancy. I mean, I guess they're going to click Fake Out here. Oh, no, they don't. Ooh. Should I have targeted Incin instead then? Yeah, maybe. I mean, if I don't... The logic of targeting the Groudon here, though, is that I need damage onto the Groudon. I don't really need damage onto Incin right now. So this next turn is going to be interesting, because I will have a speed boost, meaning I will be able to actually outpace that Zacian in the back. But they're most likely going for a... That's really good damage from Airstream. They're most likely going for Precipice Blades and a Parting Shot on Xerneas, right? Now, if I'd Quaked into the Incin Geomancy, that could work. Yeah, that may have just been the better play. I'm actually taking so much damage from Residual right now, too. Okay, they actually Parting Shot Landers. That makes sense, yeah. I think they played this game very nicely, honestly. And I could have played a little bit better by reading into Zacian, switching out into the Incineroar. I think a fair amount of players would have been baited into just clicking the Behemoth Blade onto Landorus there and Precipice Blading. So kudos to them for not, getting tunnel vision and just going for that immediately. I think now it's almost impossible to win, and one thing that Xerneas really struggles against here is residual damage, and the Wildfire plus Sand has just added up so quickly, right? I do think there's maybe still a win con here. Ugh, one turn of Wildfire and 2 turns of Sandstorm. Actually, with that, I don't really even see an out. I do have SD. Hold on. With Swords Dance, is there a way? If I were my opponent, I would actually just stay in with both Pokemon right now. I'm taking too much damage from Residual. But I should. Do I survive a turn of Wildfire and Sand? It's actually really close. Okay. I'm actually just going to Gleam into EQ here. Like, I think I'm already behind in this game, so if I somehow, like, get a crit... Okay, they actually just make the switch. Yeah, that should win them. Well, actually, yeah, crit would still win me the game here, right? That's what I'm looking for. Gleam to KO the Incineroar. And then just crit Zacian. That was my win con here. Yeah, they don't protect, okay? We do get the KO onto Incin, but now it's a -3 Lando, so I need a crit onto Zacian to have a chance. But if we get the crit, we win, right? But no crit. Man, Zern actually survived that, too. If they Blade into Xerneas, actually, there's also still a shot. No, they target Landers. Really well played. Okay. So, where could I have improved in this game? Like, I could go with Torkoal Venu and just go for Sleep Powder. Like, that's one adjustment I'd think about going for in a best of 3, but in a best of 1, I didn't feel like I needed to rely on that immediately. Turn 1 in this game, I mean, they just, like, got the residual really quickly, right? Like, Venu Torkoal lead actually works against Charizard Zacian pretty well. Because I can pressure Sleep Powder onto either Pokemon. So I could Sleep Powder Charizard overheat Zacian, for example. But there's a reason why this is the best team in the format, right? Or the team that we just went up against. And I think my opponent executed really well. I think if they had just gotten baited into clicking Behemoth Blade onto Landers the turn I clicked Imprison there, we actually would have won the game. And so just because it's a good team, it still means you have to play it right. And they, yeah, they did not make any like mistakes, I would say, throughout the course of that. And yeah, didn't unfortunately catch them with the Imprison trick here. But we went 2 for 3 on getting value from Imprison in games 1 and 2, so I certainly can't complain. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thanks so much as always for watching. Thank you to Binja once again for the team. Check them out, linked in the description below. Rental and Paste are down there as well. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.